Welcome back, everyone. We will now start the carbon dioxide removal session. In this session, we will focus on initial demand creation towards the expansion of the CDR market and discuss the measures that are required to promote market expansion and the necessity of initial demand. First, we'd like to ask two speakers to give a keynote speech about each government's measures for CDR. Mr. Tanaka, Deputy Director General of Industrial Science, Technology and Environmental Policy, Bureau from METI, and Mark Ackiewicz, Director of Office of Fossil Energy and Carbon Measurement from U.S. Department of Energy. Following the speeches, we will hold a panel discussion inviting those who are actively working on CDR. Now, first, I'd like to welcome Mr. Tanaka to the podium to give a speech about direction of Japanese government support for CDR. Mr. Tanaka, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for coming the CDR session today. I'm Tetsuya Tanaka from METI. And first of all, I'd like to briefly introduce our current efforts and studies regarding CDR. So in order to achieve net zero in 2050, CDR is needed to counterbalance residual emissions from sectors that cannot achieve full decarbonization. According to the calculation of the IEA, IPCC, and other organizations, the world as a whole will need to remove approximately 2 to 10 billion tons of carbon dioxide per year by 2050. In Japan, residual emissions are estimated to amount roughly 50 million to 240 million tons, mainly from the industry and transportation sectors. So this means CDR at the level of several hundred million tons per year will be necessary to achieve net zero in Japan. We call the technologies that contribute to CDR as negative emission technologies, NETs. They contribute by capturing, absorbing, storing, and immobilizing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. NETs includes a variety of technologies such as forestation and reforestation, biochar that fixes CO2 by storing carbonized biomass in the ground, engineer-based technologies such as DACs and BECs, and enhancing weathering that artificially accelerate the weathering of rocks, and ocean-based technologies such as blue carbon management. Although many of these technologies and the market are still in their infancy, efforts to create a market for CDR have been progressing rapidly, especially in recent years. For example, the United States, in its Inflation Reduction Act passed last year, announced that it would provide a tax credit of up to $180 per ton for DACs. I think the next presentation of Mr. Ackiewicz from US DOE will probably give us the details. The EU has also published a draft regulation on the framework for carbon removal certification, and the UK has begun considering support measures for the market introduction of DACs and BECs. Encouraged by these developments, investment and business in DAC and other negative emission technology has been growing rapidly in recent years. So Climeworks, this is a picture from the Climeworks homepage. and which will join us in the panel discussion later, has started the DAX business in Iceland and has struck deal with companies such as Microsoft. So we can say that the market for CDR is starting its expansion. So based on this situation, METI, our ministry, held a study group for creation of negative emission market, and we discussed the future direction of each net's rule formation and other policies toward market creation. We compiled a summary of the discussions in June. One of the issues discussed is how the government can support to create a market for CDR. CDR is essential to achieve net zero, as I said before, but the cost of removal is still much higher than that of reduction. So the introduction of CDR and expansion of its market will not occur spontaneously. For this reason, we believe it is important for governments to stimulate and incentivize the demand for CDR in the early stages of the market. So various policy measures are currently being considered and introduced mainly in the United States and Europe. For example, the UK is considering contract for difference, number one, and government procurement of negative emission value and the purchase of excess removal credit in the market. As I mentioned earlier, the US has announced a tax credit by the RRA Inflation Reduction Act and the support for large-scale capital investment and demonstration and R&D activities. In addition, institutional and regulatory measures that the EU and the UK are considering incorporating removals in their emission trading system as regulatory measures. And the US state of California is considering requiring a certain percentage of emissions to be offset by purchasing removals in the future. So based on these new development in the United States and Europe, it is necessary for us, for the Japanese government to consider support measures so that we can create a negative emission market in Japan. So in order to make that happen, it is important to create an environment for the use of carbon credits to trade the value of CDR. So creating such credit can also be an incentive for negative emission suppliers to implement their project because it establishes the means of monetization. Currently, the types and amount of removal credits that can be used in Japan are limited, but the need for removal credits derived from nets is expected to increase in the future to achieve net zero. So therefore, we are working to expand the creation of removal credits under public crediting mechanisms such as J-Credit and JCM. And also, we are considering the utilization of removal credits under the GXETS, the Domestic Emissions Trading System. So when we look at the private sector in the world, the initial demand for CDR credits has been generating. A mechanism for advanced purchase commitments for carbon removal project has been formally formed recently, creating demand signals for CDR at an early stage and enhancing predictability on the supply side will promote the formation and expansion of the CDR market. it would be possible to accelerate investment in CDR project and make them commercially viable. So one example of early demand creation is a next-gen CDR facility, which is a joint purchasing program for CO2 removal value derived from technology-based CDR. Another is a Frontier, which provides advanced market commitments. Mitsubishi Corporation has established a next-gen CDR facility this year, and Mitsui O.S.K. Lines is participating as a buyer. So we would like to discuss these topics in detail later in the panel discussion. So lastly, I would like to talk about what the Japanese government will do to recognize the importance of CDR and increase the investment in CDR in Japan. So we need to make action plans based on the type of CDR technologies. We believe developing rules for CDR is one of the most important actions. We believe that the rules for CDR can be divided in 4 main categories. So in the table. So that is the role of CDR in climate change countermeasures. Number 2 is a definition of CDR such as requirements and technology categories. Number 3 is MRV method for CDR, and number 4 is other rules specific to each technologies. So it is important to build consensus on the necessary rules for each technologies and share knowledge in appropriate forum. However, the market and industry are currently underdeveloped, and individual players are still working on their own. So therefore, there is a need for a framework to consider what we should work on for each technology. For this purpose, we are considering establishing working groups to study the content of specific rules such as measuring methods and the necessary technical standards for each technology, such as DAX, enhancing weathering, and blue ocean. So we will continue to study and further specify these points, such as support measures and rule-making system. We will contribute to the creation of the CDR market by continuing discussions in the public and private sectors. So thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today on the panel. My name is Mark Ackiewicz, and I'm the Director for the Office of Carbon Management Technologies at the U.S. Department of Energy, and also the Mission Director for the Carbon Dioxide Removal Mission as part of Mission Innovation. And what I'm going to be speaking about today is an overview of DOE's carbon management activities, specifically focused on carbon dioxide removal, and also some of the activities within the carbon dioxide removal mission. So when we're thinking broadly about DOE's climate strategy and how carbon management fits, carbon management really is part of 3 core pillars. One is decarbonizing, and I'll start on the right-hand side first with item 3, decarbonize, resilient, low-cost, efficient power grid. So really looking at boosting the grid resilience, reducing overall costs, and how carbon management fits within that grid system. More broadly speaking, just thinking about decarbonization in general for a net zero economy in 2050, looking at reducing those emissions from various industrial sources, whether that's cement, steel, other manufacturing processes. And then finally, the third pillar, which I'll be mostly focusing on today, is on carbon dioxide removal and looking at how that technology option helps abate or helps address emissions from difficult to abate sectors such as aviation and shipping, and also addressing legacy CO2 emissions. So I'm not going to cover all of these items, just given the amount of time, but just broadly speaking, our carbon management and investments cover three key areas. One is the bipartisan infrastructure law, which was enacted in November 2021. There's over 12 billion in carbon management activities related to that law. And there's a number of other activities as well that have some tangential connection with carbon management, such as hydrogen hubs and other industrial emissions reduction technologies. There's also the Inflation Reduction Act, which was enacted just a little over a year ago. And the key point or the key activity from the Inflation Reduction Act are the 45Q carbon capture tax credits. And I'll talk about those a little bit more later. And then finally, the President's budget request to Congress for fiscal year 2024. So all of those that are underlined, highlighted, and in bold, I will cover in a little more detail in the next few slides. So when we're thinking about the infrastructure law, there's really four key components that we've had. One is looking at demonstrations and large pilots for point source systems, the first box on the chart. Direct air capture, looking at regional direct air capture hubs, and also our direct air capture technology prize competitions. Carbon transport systems, looking at feed studies for those systems, but then also looking at loan and future growth grants through a program called CIFIA, which stands for Carbon Infrastructure Finance and Investment Act. So really looking at making those investments to expand carbon transport to help connect those point sources and sinks. And then finally, our carbon dioxide utilization and storage activities, where we're focusing on carbon storage validation and testing, really scaling up the storage opportunities within the United States, going into deep characterization of what the potential for these sites, and really pushing them along to commercial deployment so that they're ready and able to acquire their permitting, the permits that they need to facilitate carbon storage. And then finally, a carbon utilization program, looking at ways that we can utilize and convert carbon into other products. But what I'll really be focusing on mostly is on our direct air capture activities. So looking at the regional direct air capture hubs, it was appropriated by Congress for $3.5 billion over a 5-year period. So 700 million per year from fiscal year 2022 through fiscal year 2026. And so we released this FOA this past year. It closed in March, and we've actually made selections for these projects, and I'll talk about those a little on the next slide. But what it was focused on is developing a network of direct air capture projects, potential CO2 conversion or off-takers or storage, looking at that transport infrastructure, what are the subsurface opportunities, and looking at that infrastructure within a particular region. We had 3 topic areas for this funding opportunity announcement. We had a feasibility stage, which was really early stage concepts, thinking about how we can facilitate broad feasibility studies for direct air capture options throughout the United States. Looking at a design phase, which is topic area 2. So it's something that's a little more mature in development, and studies that may have already been done or leveraging previous studies to really start accelerating some of that further design and enhancement. And then finally, the third topic area, which is what we call a build topic area, which is looking at phases 2, 3, and 4, which is really starting to look at that more detailed design and then ultimately going into construction and operation for direct air capture hubs. So topic area 3 was where the bulk of the available funding for this FOA, which is over $1.2 billion, most of that funding went into topic area 3. When we're looking at the selections that were made, and these selections were made over the past few months, we've had 14 projects selected under topic area 1, and those are shown in blue. We had 5 projects selected under topic area 2, which are shown in green. And then finally, 2 projects selected in topic area 3, which are shown in red. And you can see on this map some of the sedimentary basins. So this isn't all of the geology in the United States. There's other mineralization concepts such as basalt, et cetera, that are up in the Pacific Northwest. But this gives you a general sense of where these projects are located relative to the geologic storage opportunities throughout the United States. In addition, I've shown on this map some prior pre-FEED studies and FEED studies as well, so you can kind of get a sense of what some of that work has already been and how that's connected or shown nearby where some of these locations are. The one great thing about the DAC Hub activity that we requested through this funding opportunity announcement is a broad portfolio of participants, technology providers, geologic basins, and various resources throughout the United States. So we're really happy with the broad portfolio that we've been able to develop through this funding opportunity announcement. When we're looking at the Inflation Reduction Act, the key activity is the 45Q carbon capture tax credit. And the Inflation Reduction Act made several modifications. And this chart shows what some of those old modifications, or what the old version of 45Q was versus the new version, which was implemented through the Inflation Reduction Act. I'm not going to highlight all the activities or the changes, but I'll focus on those relevant to direct air capture in particular. So you see the DAC facility, the old 45Q credit was 100,000 metric tons per year. That's been scaled down to 1,000 metric tons per year. So obviously offering a broad opportunity for earlier stage projects, smaller scale projects to qualify for the tax credit. It also increased the tax credit for direct air capture if you're looking at saline storage from $50 per metric ton up to $180 per metric ton for direct air capture. And then finally, if you're looking at conversion or utilization of the CO2, it's gone from $35 per metric ton up to $130 per metric ton for direct air capture. There's also been some other critical changes, such as the commence construction date, which gives more time to apply for the credit, and then other modifications such as a 5-year direct pay, which really helps on some of the economics related to deploying these types of projects. When we're looking at our budget request, this shows our broad carbon management and hydrogen with carbon management portfolio within the Office of Fossil Energy and Carbon Management. And you can see carbon dioxide removal. We had some early activities prior to fiscal year 21, such as in fiscal year 2020, 2019, but those are rolled up more in our carbon capture program, and there were smaller levels of funding, maybe anywhere from, say, 10 million to 20 million or so. But it was really in fiscal year 21 and beyond where we started seeing this increase and this emphasis on carbon dioxide removal from 40 million to 49 up to 70 million in our latest request in fiscal year 24. And this is not just looking at direct air capture technologies, it's looking at other technological or hybrid concepts such as biomass with carbon removal and storage, enhanced mineralization concepts, looking at that measurement, reporting, and verification, which is really critical so you can take advantage of things like the 45Q tax credit, and also life cycle analysis and techno-economic analysis as well. Another key activity that we're supporting through our appropriated funds is what we call the carbon negative shot. And this outlines some of those key performance elements that we're looking at. This is a broad DOE activity, not just focused on technological approaches to carbon removal, but also nature-based approaches as well. It has 4 key elements, looking at driving down the cost to $100 per net metric ton of CO2 equivalent for both capture and storage of the CO2, looking at robust accounting of the full life cycle emissions, ensuring that it's high quality, durable storage with demonstrated MRV, and then finally, looking at how can the work that we're doing in the department enable that gigaton scale removal that will be required to help achieve climate targets. So to implement, this is through the Office of Fossil Energy and Carbon Management through our team's work, looking at carbon negative shot pilots. So we released a notice of intent, which kind of signals what some of the opportunities might be that DOE will fund in the future. So one of the things that we're looking at are doing pilot projects, and we're anticipating 4 potential areas of interest, looking at biomass, mineralization, marine carbon dioxide removal, and other multiple pathway CDR test beds as well. In addition, this also includes some other activities that include not just our base appropriation fundings that we request from Congress, but also some of our infrastructure law funding as well, such as the prize competition that I previously mentioned. So future investments could include, through this effort, our direct air capture pilot prize, a purchasing prize, so looking at stimulating that demand activity as well, looking at future regional direct air capture hubs implementation, looking at the monitoring, reporting, and verification for CDR, and then ultimately looking at some of the R&D that we've been funding through some of our broader carbon management activities. So transitioning all this work that we're doing domestically, we're really looking for those opportunities to collaborate and share internationally with international partners. And one of those key efforts is through the carbon dioxide removal mission through Mission Innovation. It's co-led by Canada, Saudi Arabia, and the United States. We have a broad array of members throughout the world shown here. We also have a number of observers as well who aren't maybe necessarily tied into the mission, but very interested in the work that we're doing. We're always open to additional members as well. It was launched at COP26 in November 2021. And the scope is really looking at the RD&D for technological approaches. So really focusing on direct air capture, enhanced mineralization, and biomass with carbon removal and storage. And looking at emphasizing that long-term CO2 storage and conversion into long-lived products. So some of the priorities that we have for the rest of 2023 and looking beyond into 2024 is really making progress on what we call our existing sprints and initiatives. And we have 5 active technical tracks. Those key areas that I mentioned earlier, in addition, looking at life cycle analysis and then also the MRV activities as well. Broadly for the mission, we're really trying to measure the impact that we're having and developing and refining what we call key performance indicators or key KPIs. And looking at those various data sources and setting up the mechanisms for helping to track that progress. We're looking at maximizing opportunities for strategic engagement as well. So what are those opportunities where we can work with the private sector and take advantage of different synergies between missions, not just our mission, but are there things that we can collaborate, say, with Mission Innovation Biorefineries mission or Urban Transition mission as well. And then continuing to expand on momentum. One of the key areas that we have are looking at assessing the needs and developing actions for a measurement, reporting, and verification working group. So really focusing and narrowing in because that's such a key element when we're thinking about carbon dioxide removal is being really able to measure, report, and verify that it's resulting in those net removals. So with that, I just want to thank you again for the opportunity. And if there's any questions, here's my email address. And again, thank you all. And I wish you all the best of luck for the continued conference and panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tanaka and Mr. Ackiewicz. Now we will have a panel discussion. All the panelists, please go up to the stage. Now, Mr. Tanaka will act as the moderator. Now I'd like to hand over to Mr. Tanaka.
Yes, thank you very much. So moving on the next topic, we would like to start a panel discussion on the current efforts to create a market for CDR and the challenges to address. So I've served as a moderator of today's panel discussion. So we are very pleased to have as panelists Mr. Christoph Beuttler from Climeworks, Switzerland, and Mr. Masao KOYAMA from Mitsubishi Corporation, and Ms. Kazura KODA from Mitsui O.S.K lines. And thank you very much for coming today, everyone. So as I mentioned in my speech, CDR is necessary to achieve net zero. However, at present, both the technology and the market are still limited, and further development is needed. But on the other hand, some advanced efforts are already underway. So Climeworks is one example, and they are the world's pioneer in the demonstration and commercialization of DAC. So I'd like to ask Mr. Beuttler first, and could you tell us about the activities of Climeworks, and what do you think about the significance of CDR, including DAC?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Tanaka-san. So, yes, we are the world leader in direct air capture. What you see on this picture is O.S.K. O.S.K is our 16th project, and it's the first commercial direct air capture and storage plant we are operating in Iceland. But that plant has a capacity of 4,000 tons, and it's a drop in the ocean, so the challenge is very big. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah, thank you. So you all have seen this graph or one similar. I just wanted to point out here that, as has been said, we have to reduce emissions, but we have to remove from the atmosphere at the rate of several gigatons per year in 2050. So translated into a scale-up rate, that means about 60%. So electric cars scale currently at 50. So message is we don't have time to lose. We have to start this now, and we have to sustain this scale-up rate. And it's by no means guaranteed that we will get to these volumes, and we really have to think hard about that, because only then can we get to net zero. Next slide, please. Just very briefly about our technology. How does this work? It's a two-phase process. Essentially, we have a box with a special filter that only selects CO2. We pull air through, a lot of air, because we're chasing 420 parts per million. That's the concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere. Once the filter is saturated, we close the box, put it under vacuum, and then we heat it to 100 degrees, and then we get almost pure CO2 out of the filter. And we can then either use that CO2 to create circular economy products like, for example, jet fuel, or we can permanently store it. So we clean the atmosphere, we create these negative emissions. We're super proud of the 100 degrees Celsius desorption point, because that's the challenge, is to make the CO2, to break the chemical bond of the CO2 from the filter. Why is that so important? Because if you are in the business of removing CO2 from the air, you have to make sure that your own emissions are low. And with this, we can use renewable energy only, and we mainly need waste heat or heat to desorb. Obviously also a bit of electricity to pull the air through. Next slide, please. Just very briefly, the most asked questions we get, I briefly want to go into the different routes to carbon removal and why we need direct air capture. So yes, there are several routes of carbon dioxide removal, and the easiest way is to use biomass, right? But plants take CO2 from the air, but it needs a lot of land and it needs a lot of water. So it's if you look at the global picture, we probably need about 3 planets if we want to solve the problem with trees. So in direct air capture, essentially what we're doing is we're trading energy for space. So we use energy to make it really, really space efficient. And that then puts us on a track to solve the problem globally. The same applies to single countries. For example, in Switzerland, we need to remove about 5 million tons of our 40 million tons emissions, but we only have 3.5 million tons biomass. So we can't solve the problem. Same probably applies to Japan. So you need tech CDR, and obviously tech CDR's super permanent storage. So we mineralize the CO2 underground and it stays there forever. Next slide, please. Yeah, maybe to leave you with two thoughts. For this to work, we need to scale up, and for this we need markets. And the old style carbon markets won't work for this, so we need to redesign them. We need markets that trade carbon dioxide removals only, right? Because today's carbon markets trade avoided emission or reduction offsets. And these are cheaper, but they're not the same thing. So that's a big thing we are working on also globally. Next and last slide. So just to leave you with a bit of an outlook. So currently we are finishing Mammoth. We're going to have that online beginning of next year. That's a 10x scale up. Again, very small in terms of climate impact, but for us as a company, a big effort to do a 10x within not even 3 years. And then we're going to the US to go to megaton scale, and we really have to keep on working hard to arrive at gigaton scale. And what we need for this is these growing markets. We need to transition from a voluntary carbon market to a compliance carbon market, and we need government funding to get this off the ground as well. So think of us a bit as a solar panel provider in the 1990s. It's a technology, it's new, it's still expensive, but it will get cheaper and more plentiful if we can deploy throughout the timeline until 2050. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Beuttler. So the next speaker is Mr. KOYAMA from Mitsubishi Corporation. So in April, Mitsubishi Corporation launched the next-gen CDR facility, which serves as a carbon credit offtake platform to catalyze a technology-based CDR business. So I'd like to ask Mr. KOYAMA to explain your company's CDR efforts, including the activity about the next-gen CDR facility. So KOYAMA-san, you have the floor.
Thank you, Tanaka-san. My name is Masao from Mitsubishi Corporation and leading the CDR activities. Thank you for your time today. So please go to the next slide, please. So before the Mitsubishi's CDR activities, please quickly let me explain the Mitsubishi's whole decarb activities. This is our Mitsubishi's the whole decarb activities strategies. So as one of the Japanese largest, conglomerate companies. So we are facing multiple industries such as steel, power plant, cement, or blah, blah, blah. So we like to be the one-stop decarb solution providers of all industries. So we combine our multi-industrial network intelligence. We provide renewables and also base metals such as coppers for the electrification world, and also in the future, like ammonia, hydrogen, or clean fuels such as ICEF. So, finally, so we follow the hierarchy approach. So we try our best to reduce, avoid CO2 emission, but we also think that we need a CDL to offset the residual emissions, mainly for the hazardous sectors. So I'm leading the CDL activities within the Mitsubishi Corporation. So next slide, please. And this is the current Mitsubishi's CDL activities. So we did both nature-based solutions such as afforestation or reforestation, but also tech CDL in a green box. And so Mitsubishi is like a trading and investment company. So same as other commodities, we did two camps in the CDL market. One is a supplier or investor, and the other one is a trader of the CDR credit. And for the supplier or business developer, so we covered multiple technologies as Tanaka-san in the first presentation. So in the tech CDR world, there's multiple technology, including the DAX. So biochar mineralization, enhanced weathering, ocean, or bikers of DAX. So biochar is related to the agriculture business, and the mineralization for the concrete industries, and the BEX or DAX need a CCS, and also BEX needs a bio types of business. So I think the Mitsubishi is in a good position, or we can contribute to this world because we can collaborate with the multiple industries. Under the current existing business, we are facing all agri or concrete or CCS industries. So we combine our knowledge or network in the multiple industries. So we like to contribute to the scale this industry as an investor or as a business developer. At the same time, carbon credit is only one solution to monetize CDR project. And as Mitsubishi, back in the Kyoto Protocol, we are the largest CDM, so Kyoto Protocol's carbon credit developer. So we have the knowledge in the carbon credit market as well. So in the carbon credit space, we do trading activities of carbon credit from the CDR market, and matching the suppliers and the buyers, and we like to scale this market as well. And one of the examples of our carbon credit activities for the tech CDR is Action. So please, if possible, could you go to the page 6, please? So, and as Tanaka-san introduced, recently, we established a next-gen CDR facility together with Mitsui O.S.K line and other European buyers, European-American buyers such as BCG, Swiss Re, UBS, and LGT. So this is like a catalyst program for the tech CDR. To scale new industries or new technologies, we need a demand. So we aggregate demand from Mitsui-san or BCG. So these big corporates, and together with these 5 founding buyers, we established Next-Gen. So we got a commitment to offtake credit from these 5 buyers, and we aggregate demand of tech CDR credit. And our partner Southpole and Mitsubishi evaluate or due diligence of the tech CDR project on the right side, and we provide high-quality carbon credit to provide buyers, and also we aggregate demand from the buyers, and we commit to the offtake tech CDR credit from the projects on the right side, and we commit to offtake their credit before they start project, and we give the revenue certainty to the project side, and we like to support their FID, and we like to scale this market. So we try to make a project bankable before they start the project, and we like to scale these industries. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, KOYAMA-san. So the next speaker is Ms. KODA from Mitsui O.S.K line, in short, MOL. So MOL participated in the next-gen CDR facility, as KOYAMA-san said, as a founding buyer, and also participated in the First Movers Coalitions as the first Japanese company. The shipping sector is one of the hard-to-abate sectors. So MOL has been actively involved in the CDR projects. So I'd like to ask Ms. KODA to talk about your company's initiative for CDR. So KODA-san, please.
Thank you, Tanaka-san. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kazura. I'm in charge of the carbon desk, leading the all CDR-related activity at Mitsui O.S.K lines. Next slide, please. So speaking of our company, our climate journey has commenced when we have set net zero 2050 target back in 2021. And as you can see in the graph, we have a huge emission currently, which is more than 10 million tons CO2 emission annually, which comes from scope 1 by operating 800 bases all over the world. So our priority is always to reduce our value chain emission. But from the beginning, due to the hard-to-abate nature of the industry, we recognize the importance of CDR to neutralize our residual emission in the year of achieving net zero, as you can see in the pink color in our graph. Next slide, please. And this year, we have updated our environmental vision and decided to go beyond our value chain. So this comes from our sense of the urgency that there is a remaining limited carbon budget. And in order for the society to achieve net zero, we have to scale the CDR market significantly. Next slide, please. And our commitment includes activities related to CDR, which is to retire 2.2 million tons of CDR by 2030. And by doing so, we wish to create the CDR market and make this durable CDR available when the hard-to-abate sector will need them in the future. Next slide, please. And our initiative includes our investment into the mangrove restoration project in Indonesia, also the next participation into the next-gen CDR facility as one of the funding buyers. And we are also the member of First Movers Coalition, shipping and CDR sectors. And by utilizing our level of demand, power of demand, we wish to create the important technology to scale and make the market available for future generations. Next slide, please. But at the same time, we recognize there is the ambition gap between our net zero commitment and the level of the emission reduction that currently available technology can make. So we actually established the investment vehicle in the US called Emerald Switch to invest and double down into the climate tech, including CDR. So by combining the power of demand and power of investment, we wish to take part in the acceleration of the development of the nascent technologies. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Koda-san. So now I'd like to ask you a couple of questions, QA time. First of all, I'd like to ask Mr. Beuttler, as a DAC, the supplier, how do you see the future development of CDR markets, and how do you try to increase the customers of the your CDR service?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. So I think the first part here is that what I said in the presentation, right? We need to have clarity on the two different credit classes. We need offset credits for traditional offsets, but we also need the markets that trade CDR only, because at net zero the offset market is gone because there's nothing more to offset. So that's the first challenge. The second challenge is that when you look at what's currently traded, there's single point buys. I wouldn't even say we have a voluntary market for CDR yet. But the volume of the whole carbon offset market is about 2 billion tons currently. This needs to become a multi-trillion-dollar market. So we need to ask the question, how do we scale that market along with the scale-up rate of CDR? So our current thinking around this is the voluntary market is great, and it needs to grow, and we need to develop the standards and regulation, but we also need compliance markets, right? And the last point, who's buying? I think it's the pioneers, the companies, especially from the tech space and the banking space, that understand, oh, if we don't help here, if we don't drive this, we won't get to the volumes needed. But currently, it's the same buyers buying over and over and over again. And we need to attract new buyers, and that comes through education, right? We have to spread the word that this is needed in order to get to net zero, I would say.
So are you interested in the Japanese customers?
Yes, we are. That's why we're here. We're also interested to expand to different countries. I've said at the beginning, we have won the government contracts in the US, but we want to go beyond the US, and really make this a global thing. On the other hand, I have to say we also already sold out until 2028, so we are bringing more capacity to the market. So if you get in now, you also secure access to the constrained supply. I think that's the other important thing.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Beuttler. So we repeatedly mentioned that CDR technology is still under development, and the cost of CDR is still very high, but the buyers like MOL recognize the value of CDR and willing to participate in the CDR project. So Ms. Koda, what the significance do you see in taking on this challenge at this early stage?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So it is increasingly, getting obvious that nature-based solution alone cannot cover the, volume of CDR needed for societal net zero. So we cannot overemphasize the importance of technology-based CDR And in particular, direct air capture is getting high expectations due to its potential to scale and permanence. And for shipping sectors, I think scaling up and reducing the cost of DAC also have a special meaning because it can surprise a green source of CO2, green CO2, and that can be utilized for the production of synthetic fuels. And this is a very important part of decarbonization of shipping industry. And for corporate strategic perspective, I think now that setting a net zero target is kind of de facto standard for companies. So I think it can be a very strong distinguished factor if you work in the CDR space before regulation tells us what to do. In this sense, early involvement in the CDR sector can be a very, what to say? So, sorry, I want to emphasize that, especially under this situation, we foresee a strong supply shortage between 2030 to 2040. So early involvement in this sector will give you or make you a partner of choice, not only as a buyer, but also an investor. And I think this will provide a very significant impact on the future positioning of your company. So for us, we believe doing a right thing will create a longer term value in the end.
Thank you very much, Koda-san. Mr. Koyama-san, I understand your business strategy, but there are still lots of, uncertainties in the CDR business. So how do you envision the future development of CDR business? More frankly, what the odds that, your business, works successfully?
Thank you so much. So if possible, can I also, again, use my slide for answering your questions? So recently, BCG issued a report about CDR market, and we have the same view as BCG. So it says there will be a very significant demand. So to the question, so I think CDR market is very significant in the future, very big market. And everyone says CDR needed to achieve the midterm goal in 2030 or finally net zero goal by 2050. But so the demand is very, very significant in the future. But on the other hand, right now is very, very small demand because the cost is high. They want to purchase over the $100 per ton or $200 per ton. Therefore, project developers cannot start operation because lack of the demand. But everyone says they need a CDR in 2030 and to achieve their net zero goal or their midterm goal. But a project cannot develop the project within 1 year or quickly. So therefore, everyone says there will be a very, very big shortage of the supply in the future, 2030. So as a Mitsubishi Corporation, so we like to fill the gap as much as possible through the trading activities and the matching demand and the supply, and also as an investor, so invest in the project and to scale the market.
Very much. So we are running out of time. So this is the last question for everyone. So personally, I'd like to ask this question. So to promote the the CDR business or expand the CDR market, what kind of government policy do you need? So Mr. Beuttler first.
Yeah. Again, great question. So I think we need to be pragmatic. We need policies that we can develop quickly. I would say, but also the ones that take us into the far future. So from our perspective, a contract for difference would be very ideal. CAPEX funding is also great. And the other government policy is to develop that carbon dioxide removal compliance market that we need. And I think about how this can either be integrated into an ETS with different credit classes or to establish two different markets. And that needs to come, I think, relatively soon. So from our perspective, if we would need these by 2030, we think. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So Ms. Koda-san, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so we wish there will be more first movers who can bridge the gap until regulation emerges. But in the end of the day, I think it is a regulatory push that can really scale the CDR market. So I think it is really a good move for Japanese government now checking all the type of options from subsidy, tax credit, or even government procurements. But in the end, the question is whether we can keep the pace with global momentum. I think speed really matters. Whatever the regulation is, if the timing is too late, we will miss the opportunities. So I think the perfection is the enemy of good, and we should not. We should take actions and should not, pause our thinking for the sake of perfection.
Thank you very much. So how about KOYAMA-san?
Thanks so much. So I think to scale this market, we need a carbon incentive from both public sector, government, and also private sectors. And for the government incentives, I think the feed-in tariff for the renewables was a very good example. So renewables are implemented, feed-in tariff was implemented, and the cost of the renewables was cheaper than before for the customers, and there are lots of demand came in, and the supply came in, and there are lots of competition, and also scale merit, and finally renewable costs dramatically dropped. So we need such a positive trend we need. So maybe government push is very critical, but we understand government cannot support all the technologies. You need to support lots of technologies, and the budget is limited. At the same time, therefore, we need private sector's incentives or carbon incentives, like Microsoft, Shopify. These companies started purchasing a tech CDL over $100, sometimes $2,000 per ton. But everyone cannot do that such a thing. So in addition to the carbon incentive for the public, also we like to have like a award or from the government to like a first movers. So if government supports such a first movers like MOL or Microsoft or other Japanese company NA, so if we create a new market or create new demand from the private sectors.
Okay, so thank you very much. So we are almost, out of time. So I have to, close the session. So actually, personally, I'm a little bit, skeptical about CDR. But after after this discussion, I think I saw a silver lining for CDR. So we had a great discussion, and please thank you very much for everyone. So please give the round of applause for the panelists. Thank you very much. Thank you.